while giving away obviously nothing from the game played this week, in general, I just wanted your thoughts on when you see the type of defense the Chargers have, clogging the middle, heavy man, obviously, what generally is effective in countering that? The first couple of things that come to mind would be what?
Well, just in general from the Charger game, I mean, you're looking at stuff. I mean, overall, I mean, it's just for us. I mean, schematically, we're looking at where we're at. I wouldn't say that we're sitting there going like, these plays were not good versus that. I think ultimately it came down to a lot of our execution inside of it. I mean, we had guys that were, as they're getting open within the timing of the play, sometimes you have a guy open and a protection breaks down. So I think it was all overall a multitude of factors. I wouldn't say that ultimately we looked at that game, Barry, and thought that, oh man, we're getting out schemed. I would say that we look at it, we were getting out executed. Our details were where we wanted to be, and I think that was the challenge of, the two game stretch. You go on the road across the country and things don't work out the way you want them to. It's like coming back and understanding when you're critical of yourself, starting with us as coaches, or are we putting ourselves in positions schematically? And then we looked at it in the game. We saw execution errors or execution things where fundamentals where we can improve. And I think ultimately that was our challenge this week to make sure that we, you're looking at, like I know Mike's hit on it too, you look at it from the top down, just what are we doing, all right, the schematic things, and then you get into fundamentals and technique, and that's the emphasis for this week. And that's the challenge of the National Football League, just because, you come off a game like Cleveland, you're feeling pretty good, and then next thing you know, you get humbled, right, because you don't get to the execution that you want. But that's the chase. It's the endless goal for all of us is to make sure our execution is at the level we want to be able to take advantage of, plays that were there.
Frank, how different is this offense since the last time you guys played Buffalo? And I guess at that time you were just kind of figuring yourselves out and getting some confidence. And since then you've had the 5-game win streak, you've had some tough losses, different personnel, but 2 or 3 things that are different about this offense?
Well, I don't know. I would say that what's different about the offense is just, of course, from September to now is that you have the ebb and flow of the season. So, I think the biggest thing, like you stated, was, Chris, that you're looking at, at that point in the season, we've had some guys coming in and out of the lineup. We've had some roster moves. All right, some guys acquired, some guys have left. And I think ultimately, there was a time in November, obviously we felt our execution was great. Right now we're obviously cleaning up some things that to help us for our execution. I think that ultimately you're saying what's different from now is just our experience playing together, our experience through good times and bad. So we've had now the NFL season really coming to the end where now it's kind of like, where you need to do for the next 4 games if you want to be in contention to, continue your season. So ultimately, I think to your point is we started off. That was a game where we were just our 3rd game together, and now we got basically through the 4 quarters of the season. So I think our experience and being a little bit more connected is something that would be probably the difference.
Frank, when we spoke in L.A., Eric Fisher had barely gotten off the plane. Now that he's had a little bit of time, do you feel comfortable putting him in if need be or if you choose to? And do you feel comfortable basically calling any play with him in there?
Yeah, true pro. His preparation is obviously top notch. We have all the confidence in what he's done as far as preparation and working on his fundamentals. So he's done an excellent job. You can see why he's played at such a high level. It's because of the detail to his preparation and his execution and how he takes the sense of urgency that everything matters. And I think that's ultimately when you're looking at a guy with his experience, that's why he's been so successful because he maximizes every opportunity and doesn't waste a moment.
Frank, we've been making a big deal about the weather, and I'm wondering where you come down on that, specifically with the Miami Dolphins, just considering, everybody who plays for the Dolphins isn't a South Florida native. They didn't play college football here. Guys have gone to Wisconsin, Purdue, all over the nation. So with the Miami Dolphins going up to Buffalo in cold weather, how big a deal is that, and how could it affect the game? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, so I grew up in the subarctic. So knowing that the differences to that, I worked in Chicago, I've worked in New Orleans, worked for me personally, different parts of the regions of the country. West Coast the last 4 years. So what's the difference? It's like a cold weather team coming to the warm weather. There's an adjustment, but ultimately it's just understanding what every element's gonna, what it's going to provide, and you make sure that in your preparation you understand for it and you have the adequate resources you need. So I remember back when we were in New Orleans in 2013, we were a dome team that couldn't win a cold weather game, and it was this whole big deal. And we went up to Philadelphia and handled our business. And I think ultimately it's going to be about our guys coming together and understanding that there is a temperature difference, but it's only a problem if you let it be a problem, like everything.
How much do the elements alter offensive scheme, play calling, potentially? You're not getting specific, of course.
Well, ultimately, from my familiarity of, that area of the country and just the northern states in the wintertime in general, of the weather could change tomorrow. So I think even Danny, with his experience working there, it's like, if you're planning for one thing, the weather might change. I remember a couple times in Chicago, we thought we were going to have a blizzard, and then it turned up being 40 degrees. So it's just one of those where you understand what elements could be, you understand how it could impact things, you have contingency plans for it, and you just adjust to what occurs. But ultimately, it'll be about our execution regardless of what the climate is.
Frank, how much during a game do you, obviously there's a lot going on for Mike calling plays, but how often do you give him input, suggestions on what he might want to run? Does he solicit that from you as the game is ongoing?
Yeah, we have conversations throughout the game. During the drive, or in between, we're talking the whole time, pregame, postgame. It's just kind of our dialogue we have as far as what we're seeing, what we're trying to attack in the defense. So, yeah, I think the dialogue with Mike and I is constant, really. It's probably, honestly, never ending. It continually goes 7 days a week.
Doing something on good advice people receive through their careers is a little off the track here from what you're talking.
Yeah, I was expecting another "it's snowing" question.
You heard any good advice about living in the winter? No.
Yeah, exactly. Bring a coat.
Anything anybody said to you that stuck with you that you can pull up on immediate recall here?
Oh yeah, I can. I was a finance major, and I was my third year in college, and I'm sitting in Finance 301, Dr. Kerr's exam, and I am just looking at my exam. I have my financial calculator, I got my charts, I got all this stuff, and I'm looking at it, and then I'm just going, what the hell am I doing? And then as I look out, I see these two dudes like throwing a frisbee back and forth, classic like frat boys going by. I'm going like, man, I don't know what those guys are doing, but they got it figured out. I'm like, they're just having fun. I remember leaving that exam, going down to meet with my coach, Terry Hepner, head coach in college, and I just was like, I don't know what I want to do in life. I don't think I want to be a business guy because that's what my dad was. And he goes, well, have you ever thought about coaching? And I looked at him, I'm like, you think I'd be any good at it? And he goes, yeah. He's like, you make all our calls, like, what you do well, communication skills, all the stuff. He went on to list some things about me that I don't handle praise real well, so I still, like, right now, I remember that moment, I'm going back to it, going like, all right, coach, like, what do you think I should do? And he goes, if you do, he said then, but if you get into coaching, there's no guarantee you're going to have financial success. Like, there's no guarantee of anything. But if you, love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And ultimately, I was like, that makes sense to me. Because, ultimately, my father was very successful. He worked his way up from being an accountant to the president of his company. And I got to see his career path. And when he was, when he was about 60 years old, he got fired for the first time. And see him through that time really figure out what he wanted to do the back half of his career, and just seeing that, through his financial success, there's plenty of stress along the way. And I just knew, like, for me, I wanted to find something that I enjoyed every day. And back when I started being a graduate assistant for $800 a month, 10 months out of the year, which was fun trying to make sure I could pick up every recruiting dinner I could so I could have some extra money. And I just think that ultimately, I mean, it's hard, I think, in your career to find a job that you love what you do, but coaching provides such an opportunity to really live that. And when I was at Butler and we were in 2009, I think I was making $32,000 at that point in my life, and that was one of the best moments of my life. Like, they were 0-11 in 2005, and then get there our first year, and then 4 years later we go 11-1 and win the conference and made a playoff game. And there's no monetary value to the connection you have with people that still last a lifetime. Because it's funny when the pro guys meet, they meet these random Butler guys along the way, which is funny. They always look at them going like, their version of me at that time, as opposed to all the pro guys, like, he was what? Like, yeah, I was like 28 years old. I thought I had all the answers back then, so I was a little more fiery. But I think ultimately, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And then, and fortunate enough for many of us coaches, I mean, we get to fulfill that every day.
Who's the coach you said that to you?
Terry Hepner is my college
Terry.
head coach.
Yeah. You lived at Hepburn Hall?
I did. I lived in Hepburn Hall, corner room. Don't remember the number, but I was in the corner left, and me and my roommate, Jacob Bell, he started 8 years in the National Football League, and I remember when I told him I was switching to going to coaching, he looked at me and was like, "You're doing what?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to do that." He's like, "All right, man." He's like, "I'm going to play National Football League." I'm like, "Well, I'm glad you got your figured out." So,
What if those guys weren't playing frisbee that day?
I don't know. I probably just looked at with despair and go like, there is no hope. Thanks, Hal. You're taking me around the door like the momentary. Thank God for the frisbee guys. It's those moments in life. I mean, that's probably for me. That was a life-changing moment because maybe they weren't there and I don't see that, and I keep going and thinking like, this is just what it is. And I go into finance and doing God knows what right now. So I'm about as lucky a story as you can have. So very fortunate.
Thanks.
No
I
problem.
know one guy who's got appreciation for Miles is Eric, having worked with Gaskin the last 3 years. If he's needed Saturday, obviously with Jeff Wilson's hip, what skills have you grown to admire on field, off field about him, Frank?
Yeah, I think he's really prepared himself. I mean, we have full confidence in him. There's not like anything that we're really thinking that, hey, we can't do this with him. We really, his preparation, his work ethic, I think he can step in the role and, really fulfill what we need all of our backs to do with their skill sets.
Doing a profile of Coach McDaniels, and I'm just sort of curious, what's the biggest difference about working with him from all the other coaches, head coaches you work with?
Man, I thought I was just gonna get weather and bills, getting life-changing stuff. Yeah, exactly. The one thing about Mike that's different. I mean, I've been fortunate enough. I have a real cross spectrum of guys I've worked for. I worked for Sean Payton, John Fox, John Gruden, Brandon Staley, and in college, Terry Hepner. I got to GA for him. He's probably the most impactful person I ever worked for. But I'd say that Mike, the one thing with him is his ability for this offense and to understand how to communicate and how to utilize our scheme and use it to attack defenses. I mean, Mike has excellent communication skills, his ability to see what the defense is doing and to attack it. And then every day he has such a positive approach. I mean, he's one of the most positive people I've ever been around. And like you guys know, every day you're also going to laugh when you go to work for him too. That's not always true at some places. But I mean, ultimately his communication skills of this game, his endless positivity, and I think I'm probably speak for most of the staff when we were fortunate enough to work here, and most of us skip to work every day when you have a boss that is able to communicate through a positive approach every day.
When you say positive, is like he just like saying like, is he complimenting you guys, or is he's always like what do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, ultimately, I could be standing in this room right now looking at it going like, God, no one wants to show up for me. Or I could say, like, these are the guys that really love football. I mean, it's just how you view every situation. So I look at it like, you can either see what you don't have, all right, what you need, what you're always looking for an option to give you an out towards a situation or what's occurring. as opposed to attacking the situation with what you have, with relentless pursuit to try and get it the best you can. I just think that he always sees the moment for what it is, doesn't make excuses, and has such a positive approach to it, because when you do that, you're always knowing there's a chance, as opposed to in the other way when you're pessimistic or you're kind of giving these subtle outs. And, you know, that's just not the way he ever operates anything. It's just, how do we get to where we need to go with what we have, and let's make sure we have an energy and optimism to what we do, because, I mean, we're fortunate enough to be here. You know, we love what we do, and you can tell he loves coaching football.